Hey guys, Ryan here and welcome to the Battle Blog. And in today's Battle Blog we will be talking about my experience with game development, the very first game I ever made and released and is downloadable, and why I quit game development for over 15 years and why I'm coming back to it. So if you asked me as a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to make video games. Like my very first goal was I wanted to release a game on the NES when I was an adult. Well, I'm a couple of decades late, but I can still release games on the NES, so I'm gonna put an NES game on the back burner here. So I remember my first computer was a leading edge IBM compatible, and I asked my dad, hey dad, are there programs on this computer where I can make games like Super Mario Brothers? And he was like, I have no idea, son. So when I was a kid, I remember the very first game plans I ever made were for Super Dragon Warrior. So I kind of drew out my plans on paper, and I drew out this dungeon where at the end of this dungeon, you actually fight Barney the dinosaur as a boss. Well, obviously, since I don't have these plans anymore, since I threw them away a long time ago, I'm gonna recreate the battle screen in Photoshop where you fight Barney. I love you, you love me. Children of Hargon are family. Hey, descendants of Erdrick, I'm gonna kill you for the Dragon Lord. Yeah, I really didn't get too far in Super Dragon Warrior, and I also remember making plans for a Final Fantasy IV, which was the sequel to the US Final Fantasy III, which is Final Fantasy VI, but we got it here as Final Fantasy III back in 1994. So the plot of my Final Fantasy IV was, so the crew of Final Fantasy VI was living peacefully after defeating Kefka, but then this meteor starts coming towards the Earth, but it comes very slowly, so the crew goes to investigate the meteor, and then they find a civilization of meteor people on it. You know, kind of like the Lunarians in the original Final Fantasy IV. And the main villain was going to be this rogue meteor being, kind of like Zeromus from Final Fantasy IV. So I kind of predicted meteors before Final Fantasy VII ever came out. And also as a kid, I've held on to these for a very long time. I actually made plans for a Mutant League Golf. I'm going to show better pictures here. Mostly because Mutant League Football is my all-time favorite Genesis game, and I also love Mutant League Hockey, but I wanted them to make a Mutant League Golf because back when I was a kid I was really getting into golf. So I'm definitely going to scan these plans and cover them in another vlog because they're pretty interesting and my handwriting is pretty terrible. I'm going to try to do my best to translate all of these for you in a future vlog. So the very first gaming engine I ever worked with was this program called Click and Play. So if you're around my age and you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you might have heard of Click and Play or you might have not, because Click and Play was very hard to find in stores. Like I could not find Click and Play at Electronics Boutique, Egghead Software, or any other computer store. So a friend of mine lent me a CD with the demo of Click and Play, and it was very limited. Like you had a limited amount of assets you can work with. You can't even save your game. You can only make like one level. But I was really blown away by this program, despite how very limited it was, especially the demo. So I remember making this game in Click and Play where you control this square, which is supposed to be a gun, and you shoot skateboarding kids. And I remember messing with Click and Play so much back in the day that it felt so cool just to move around my little square, which is supposed to be my gun, and then pressing a button to have it shoot like another square. And after that you shoot like the skateboarding kids. So I do kind of have this WarioWare type minigame compilation thing in mind where I want to pay tribute to Click and Play where you actually shoot skateboarding kids. But that sounds kind of morbid for today's standards, because why would anybody want to shoot skateboarding kids like, yo, get off my lawn, skateboarding kids, bam. So maybe I'll change it to something like, no, maybe shoot skateboarding kids with potato guns or something like that, or get off my lawn simulator. But I do plan on making a tribute to Click and Play and the skateboarding kid. And yes, I have downloaded the full Click and Play, but I have not set up a virtual machine to actually get it working or DOSBox yet, but one of these days I'm gonna get it working. I'm gonna try to make something in it. it and make another vlog about Click and Play. Alright, so now let us talk about the very first game I actually completed and released, and is downloadable in the description below. So back in 1999, during the Dragon Ball Z craze, I created a game called Attack of the Saiyajin, or as we know them as Saiyan in English dub. Well, it technically should be Saiyan, but you know. So I created this game in the official Hamster Republic RPG engine. So back in 1999, you can only get the demo version, which only had 4 maps total. But I think a year later, in the year 2000, they actually released the full version where you can get 99 maps. But I was only able to use the demo version with 4 maps at the time. And I remember having to draw Nappa and Vegeta in their pixel editor. And I'm still kind of proud how I drew them to this day. So basically the plot was Nappa and Vegeta land on this planet and then they have to kill the inhabitants of it. And I pretty much stole all the music from Final Fantasy and Dragon Ball. And the game took me about 3 months on and off to complete back when I was in high school. And it's pretty short, you can probably beat it in 1 hour, and it's actually a lot tougher than it looks. Kind of wanted to make it like a tough RPG where you have to grind in order to finish it. And it surprisingly works on modern day computers. It doesn't work very well, but I do recommend playing the better Attack of the Saiyans game on the Nintendo DS. So this was my very first game I completed and released. You can download it in the description below. And I also have other games that were made by my friends on this page, but my game is Attack of the Saiyajin. And I was actually planning on making a sequel to Attack of the Saiyajin, but I remember how long it took just to make the original, so I kind of backed out on making the sequel. And I did try to find a Final Fantasy Tactics type game maker back in 1999 because I wanted to make a Dragon Ball Z Final Fantasy Tactics type game, but I couldn't find one, so that idea was completely scrapped. And then in 2001, I actually bought RPG Maker for the PS1, and it is very cumbersome to make an RPG just with a controller rather than a mouse and a computer, because man, it takes so long just to type in your text, place all the assets, draw the map. And I was only able to make the opening sequence for this RPG I was making. I mean, I didn't really have a title for it, I was just kind of messing around. So the opening sequence was, the heroes were dropping barrels on these guards in a castle, and they were shouting early 2000s references like Budweiser and "What's up?" But it just took so long just to do anything in a console version of RPG Maker. But I know RPG Maker has gone through a lot of changes over the years. And yeah, they still have it on consoles, and I assume it's way easier to use. I still haven't tried it yet though. Alright, so in 2006 when I was in college, I was majoring in computer science because I thought, hey, I have to learn computer science so I can learn programming so I can make games. But I was also in a very tough spot in 2006 because in 2004, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, so he was kind of in and out of the hospital. So in 2006, my mindset was, alright, so I gotta graduate with my computer science degree and learn programming, and after that get a good job in the gaming industry as a game programmer so I could help my mom with the medical bills for my dad. So in all honesty, I am not a mathematical person at all. Math is one of my worst subjects. I'm more of an artistic person. And I was kind of hoping there were programs like Click and Play and the official Hamster Republic RPG engine so I wouldn't have to learn programming, so I can just use drag and drop programs. But I kept on hearing over the years that you have to learn programming and major in computer science in order to make games. And I was kind of hoping, being in the situation, in panic mode, to help my dad with the medical bills for his cancer, it would actually help me learn programming. Like, you hear those stories when people are like the most desperate in their lives, but then that's when everything turns around for them because, they defy the odds and stuff like that. In my case, that didn't quite happen because, so the first programming classes I learned in my computer science curriculum were C++ and Java. And man, I could not understand any of it at all. Like, wow. I mean, I had to learn the Fibonacci sequence, all the if-then conditional statements. My brain just could not understand any of it. So my C++ teacher was this very condescending Indian guy who we basically called M. Night Shyamalan. So it was kind of funny. I would talk with my classmates saying, so hey, did M. Night Shyamalan give you like a bad grade too? And this guy did not give a crap about teaching. Like, I think he was only there just to get the paycheck. So I remember the first day I was in M. Night Shyamalan's C++ class, he was like, well, 90% of you are gonna fail, and I know a lot of you come here wanting to program games, but games programming is like the hardest there is, and you have to learn all the basics. But then again, I can't really blame M. Night Shyamalan for being so jaded, because he sees all these gung-ho kids wanting to program video games, but then they don't really understand programming, and then they fail, and then that probably killed his morale over the years, so maybe that's why he doesn't give a crap about teaching anymore and just comes for the paycheck. So my Java teacher was this very old man, also very, very condescending. He basically said all the same things that M. Night Shyamalan said. Hey, 90% of you are gonna fail this class, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but this mofo, this frickin' old mofo, like, if he caught you falling asleep in class, he would call out your name and ask you a question about Java, basically humiliating you in front of the class. And I can't even begin to fathom how many times I got caught. I was like, Ryan, so what does this function in Java do? I'm like, I don't know, sir. F. So for me in 2006, just imagine going to class every single day, just knowing you're gonna fail. It's like one of the most soul-crushing feelings in the world. And I'm not really a good student, I'm more of a C student, but even me as a C student was like, So here in the United States, the college I went to operates on the quarter system, where the classes are 10 weeks, and you have the first 3 weeks to withdraw from the class, so you just get a W on your grade and it doesn't affect your GPA. And I realized I don't think I want to do this anymore. And the problem is, I realized this during the 4th week, 1 week after the deadline to withdraw, so I was kind of stuck. So I had two choices, either stop coming to class and just fail them outright, or try to duke it out and get a D so I can at least get the credit even though my GPA is going to take a hit. So I decided to duke it out and failed miserably. So you can pronounce my grades back in 2006 as but hey, at least I duked it out trying to get the D. No, D for Duke. And if I decided not to come to class anymore, yeah, I totally deserved the F. And yeah, this was hands down one of the most soul-crushing experiences of my life. Like, not only did I feel like I failed my family because I wasn't able to get a good programming job so I can help pay the bills for my dad's cancer, but most heartbreakingly, I failed myself. I failed my childhood dream. You know, back then, I was kicking myself for doing that, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't learn programming. My brain just could not understand any of it. So I pretty much changed my major to something a lot easier and focused more on getting into the film industry. But sadly, my dad passed away in January of 2008, so that pressure to get a good job right away wasn't there anymore. And I learned a bit later that computer science graduates have a really, really hard time getting a job out of college anywhere. But even though I was focusing more on film and I was able to get a job in the film industry, there were times I still tried to apply for the game industry. Like, I tried to apply for Blizzard in 2008 when they had a video editor position open, but they never got back to me. And in 2014, I tried to apply for their community manager position, but they never got back to me. And I think I dodged a bullet there because we all know what happened to Blizzard. I mean, I would have been one of those employees saying, "Blizzard screwed me over, man. Bobby Kotick's like the devil incarnate." So even though I gave up my dream of making games, I moved on to making, videos about games on this YouTube channel. But deep inside, I always had that kind of yearning to kind of want to make games again. Like, I would hang out with so many game developers and they would ask me, "Oh, hey Ryan, do you ever think about making a game?" I mean, I would be like, "Nah, man, I don't really make games. I just, play them." And every time Humble Bundle would do a sale on Unity assets, I'd be like, "Oh, it seems so tempting to get back into game development because these seem so cheap." But no, I only play games. I don't make them anymore. So it pretty much inspired me to get back into game development. And so over the years, I would actually see my friends show progress of their own games and then actually release their own games. And I'll be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool, man. I'm going to support you all the way." And so I have two good friends named Josh and Trevor who run Team Kaizen Studio, and they're making two really, really cool games. And, just seeing the progress of them. And I actually got to play, the beta of one of them. And I know they've been trying to pitch their games to some studios to get some funding. And they were actually featured on PlayStation's YouTube channel. And I was like, oh man, that is like so inspiring. And actually, two of my friends actually quit their high-paying full-time jobs in order to pursue game development, and now they're full-time game devs. And one of them is my friend Nate, who I knew from the anime music video community. He's actually released 2 mobile games called Meteoroids and Tangle, which I highly recommend. And then my friend Elmondine Todd from the Dragon Quest community actually quit his full-time job as a cop so he can work on his really awesome looking game Godshard Chronicles, which I highly recommend checking out. And then my friend Test Zero actually made this cool RPG called Book of Eos. And then my friend Allie is getting really close to releasing her game Aquatalion, and I'm supposedly in the game, and I have played the demo of Aquatalion, but I haven't gotten that far in it. And I told Allie I don't want to really play this game in full until you actually release it so I can pay for it and support you that way. So I was doing a lot of thinking in 2021, and I was like, you know what, I've been doing this YouTube thing for about 10 years and I'm getting kind of tired of it. I think I kind of want to go back to my childhood dream and make games again. It seems like so exciting, like holy crap, man. And also one of the reasons why I wanted to get back into game development was Dragon Quest X. So I kind of got sick of Square Enix not releasing this game out here in English, and I was like, you know what, why don't I make my own game, you know, my own RPG where I can create these really awesome moments that, you know, I can rip off / borrow, be inspired by Square Enix games like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Yes, I do have an RPG I do want to make, and you're definitely going to see a lot of tributes and tropes and references to Final Fantasy, Zelda, Dragon Quest, and all the RPGs I've played over the years, but I'm going to try to make it my own thing, you know, put my own little twist on it. And I think game development fits the type of content creator I am, where I want to take my time with things, because we definitely don't want a Cyberpunk 2077 debacle again. And I think after the Cyberpunk 2077 debacle and the Battlefield 2042 debacle and, you know, Halo Infinite, the gaming community is more like, oh no, you better delay this game and make it good. Take your time, or else we're going to have another Cyberpunk 2077 on our hands. And one of the big problems with the gaming industry, aside from the super toxic workplaces, is basically the crushing deadlines. And I know most game developers don't really mean to make bad games, but a lot of those games pretty much get destroyed by really crushing deadlines. You know, the developers don't have time to implement everything they want. And I know in the early 2000s, gaming finally surpassed the movie industry in being the top form of entertainment, and everybody pretty much knows for sure that the gaming industry is ruthless. Like, holy crap, all of the stories you hear, especially from Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft and a lot of other companies. So that's why I want to be indie, man. I want to be an indie developer, you know, just doing things whenever I want to do them, how I want to do them, and when I want to do them. And I'm pretty sure the gaming community will agree for developers. Take your time. So as for game engines, I've actually been learning Unity and GameMaker Studio, and I'm kind of leaning more towards GameMaker Studio for my first game, but I will learn Unity eventually because I have some 3D games I also want to make, but those are a little more down the line. And I think GameMaker kind of fits what I want to do right now. I want to do like, you know, 2D games. Yeah, because mostly 2D games are the ones that I grew up with. You know, I just love sprite art so much. I know I love sprite made worlds, and, you know, this whole sprite aesthetic, because that's what I grew up with. And I've been a content creator since 1997, and most of my content has always been more about other people's intellectual properties. Yeah, but just the notion of being able to make my own intellectual property, you know, make my own characters, make my own worlds. I mean, it just seems so exciting. I'm like, holy crap, man. I'm like, I mean, just being able to make my own interactive world is just like totally mind-blowing, man. So as of now, since I'm just kind of starting again, money and fame aren't really going to be the main goal. Yeah, but realistically, I would like to make some money, but I would probably put that money towards making more games. And yes, I would like some recognition so people actually play my games. Yeah, but right now, my main motivation is I just want my games to exist. I want to be able to tell people like, yeah, I made a game, you can buy it on the eShop, you can go to the PSN store or Xbox Live or Steam. So I decided my very first commercial game is going to be a space shooter because, you know, I love shmups. I mean, I love games like Galaga, I love the Raiden series. Yeah, but this space shooter is going to be very goofy and very silly. It's going to look more like, you know, Twin Bee. So think of it more like Fantasy Zone fun, parodious, Twin Bee, and all those kind of silly, cute shooters. And it's actually based on something I've shown on the channel, but you guys probably won't be able to guess what it is. But once I release it, you're gonna be like, oh, I kind of recognize that thing from the channel. And then after that, I wanna make an action platformer. And then after that, the third game will be my dream game, which will be an RPG. And this is kind of something I've had planned for nearly a decade now. But back then I was like, oh, it would be cool if another company made this game since I don't want to make it. But now, nearly a decade later, I'm kind of like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try to make this game. So this is kind of what my short-term goal is right now. Since I turned 40 last October at the time of making this video, I at least want to get like 3 games made by the time I turn 50. It's probably gonna take a long time to make my space shooter game, but hopefully I'll get it done a little quicker. It might take a little time to make my platforming game, but I bet it's probably gonna take a very, very, very long time to get my RPG done. So I'm gonna allow myself a couple of years to get it done. And like, there's a super awesome indie game that I have called Super Mega Baseball, and I highly recommend it. And it took the creators 7 years to make that game, and now they're on the 3rd one. And I think that's a sign, no matter how long it takes to make a game, just as long as you're persistent, you're definitely gonna finish it. Yeah, so will my games and characters be memorable like Mario, Zelda, Mega Man? Or will I make the next indie hit like Stardew Valley, Undertale, and other games like that? Probably not. But in all honesty, it doesn't really matter. I just want to finally make games. I just want to achieve my childhood dream, because it was my dream back then to have a game released on the NES, but I'm a couple of decades late for that. But like I said before, I can still release a game on the NES, but I'm probably going to put that on the back burner. Like, my short-term goal right now, at least release-wise, is to at least get a game on the Nintendo eShop. So I can be like, I finally did it, my childhood self. I released a game on a Nintendo console. So just adding this in since I forgot to record this. So I was also thinking about, if I were to go back in time and start game development a lot earlier, would I? Probably not, because back then my ideas weren't really that fleshed out. I mean, I wanted to make Super Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy IV. And also back then, my mindset was more like, I'm gonna help, a company like Blizzard make the next Warcraft or Diablo, and not my own game. And actually doing Battle Geek Plus as a show first actually taught me how to make original stories and original characters, and a lot of the discarded ideas that I couldn't make as shows are actually going to be put into my games now. And I think there's a lot of ideas I had in the past that didn't really work out, but I think they'll work better as games rather than shows. And I've also talked to a lot of other game developers over the years about my experience with game development, and they were pretty much like, oh man, it's so much easier to self-teach yourself. You don't really need to go to school for it. I mean, there's so many better tutorials now, because back in 2006, yeah, like there were barely any good tutorials on YouTube back then. Now YouTube has almost like everything. And also other game developers are like, wow, you must have had like really bad teachers, which I did. And it's a lot easier to self-teach myself because I'm not in a school setting where I'm going to be judged with a grade. And also there's these 2 little things called Google and YouTube, which will pretty much provide you with anything you need. And also game development is like being given every single piece of Lego of whatever size and color and pretty much being told, just go nuts, man. I mean, that's how crazy game development is. It's like any crazy mechanic that you want to make, you can actually make it happen. Now, I know some mechanics are a little harder to pull off than others, but anything you want to do is actually doable in game development. It's crazy, man. Alright guys, so that's where I plan for the future of Battle Geek Plus the head is into game development. Maybe one day I will make a feature-length film, kind of like my Dragon Quest X version 5 review, but this time with an actual crew. But I'm going to put that a bit on the back burner now because I actually want to make games, because I think it's finally time for me to make games, and I'm just like super excited to make my own characters, my own worlds, and make it a completely interactive experience for you guys. So I hope you guys wish me luck and stick with me on this journey. Because of the Cyberpunk 2077 debacle, I will do my best to not make my game suck, but you guys will definitely be the judge of that, so hopefully I can make some pretty decent games. So I'm probably going to make some vlogs in the future about my space shooter, so hopefully all of you join me on my game dev journey, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to check out these other videos, and also make sure to follow me on social media and check out the official Battle Geek Plus website. Take care.